Welcome to the chilling account of Jerry Brudos, the shoe fetish slayer. It was a chilly November morning in 1968 when Linda Slauson, a 19-year-old college student, disappeared while hitchhiking near her hometown of Milwaukee, Oregon. Linda was a vibrant and carefree young woman, known for her outgoing personality and zest for life. She was studying to become a nurse, and her dreams were as bright as her future. As Linda's family and friends grew increasingly worried about her disappearance, the police launched a search operation. Little did they know that their worst fears were about to be realized. Jerry Brudos, a mild-mannered shoe fetishist who harbored dark and sinister desires, had been keeping a watchful eye on Linda for some time. He had already committed several gruesome murders before he set his sights on her. When he saw Linda hitchhiking that fateful morning, he couldn't resist the opportunity to satisfy his twisted desires. Brudos pulled up in his car, pretending to be a helpful stranger offering a ride. Linda, trusting and unaware of the danger, accepted his offer. As she got into the car, she had no reason to suspect the horrors that awaited her. Brudos drove Linda to a secluded home in Salem, Oregon, where he had meticulously prepared a dungeon-like room in his garage. Inside, he had an assortment of women's clothing and shoes, collected from his previous victims. The room was a twisted shrine to his fetish, a place where he could indulge his sick fantasies. Over the course of several weeks, Linda endured unimaginable torment at the hands of Jerry Brudos. He subjected her to physical and psychological torture, forcing her to wear various shoes and clothing while he took photographs to satisfy his disturbing desires. But Linda was not a helpless victim. She fought for her life, and her will to survive was nothing short of extraordinary. In a desperate bid to escape, she bided her time, waiting for the right moment to strike. When that moment finally came, Linda seized it with all the strength she could muster. One night, as Brudos momentarily let his guard down, Linda made a daring escape from the garage. She fled through the dark streets of Salem, her heart pounding with fear and adrenaline. Eventually, she stumbled upon a nearby house where the terrified homeowner called the police. The authorities quickly arrived at the scene, and Linda provided them with a description of her abductor. It didn't take long for the police to connect the dots and identify Jerry Brudos as the prime suspect. They obtained a search warrant for his home, and what they found inside was a chilling testament to his crimes. Brudos was arrested and subsequently confessed to the abduction and torture of Linda Slauson, as well as the murders of other women. He was convicted of his crimes and sentenced to life in prison. Linda Slauson, despite the physical and emotional scars she carried for the rest of her life, survived her horrifying ordeal. Her bravery and determination not only saved her own life but also helped bring Jerry Brudos to justice, ensuring that he could never harm another innocent victim again. Jerry Brudos, born Jerome Henry Brudos on January 31, 1939, in Webster, South Dakota, would later become one of America's most infamous serial killers. His childhood and early life were marked by disturbing signs that foreshadowed the dark path he would eventually tread. Jerry Brudos grew up in a troubled family environment. His father was a domineering and abusive figure who often belittled and physically abused him. Brudos' fascination with women's shoes began at an early age when he found a pair of high-heeled shoes in a junkyard. This discovery would later evolve into a dangerous fetish that played a central role in his crimes. As a teenager, Brudos displayed signs of deviant behavior. He was arrested for stealing women's shoes from the neighbors' houses, but these early encounters with the law did not lead to significant consequences. In 1958, Brudos married Darcy Metzler, and they went on to have 2 children together. On the surface, he appeared to be a normal family man, working as an electronics technician to support his wife and children. However, his obsession with women's shoes continued to intensify, leading him down a dark and dangerous path. Brudos' criminal activities escalated in the late 1960s when he began to abduct and murder young women. His first known victim was Linda Slauson in 1968, followed by several others. He would lure his victims into his car, subdue them, and take them to a specially prepared torture chamber in his garage. In this chamber, he subjected his victims to unspeakable acts of physical and psychological torture while forcing them to wear various pieces of women's clothing and shoes. His compulsion to photograph his victims in these humiliating poses served as a disturbing record of his crimes. Jerry Brudos' reign of terror came to an end in 1969 when Linda Slauson miraculously managed to escape his clutches and seek help. Her courage and testimony led to Brudos' arrest, Upon searching his home, the police discovered the horrifying evidence of his crimes, including photographs, trophies, and the infamous torture chamber. In 1970, Brudos was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. He was incarcerated at the Oregon State Penitentiary, where he spent the rest of his life. Brudos spent his time in prison relatively quietly, unlike some other notorious serial killers who attracted attention for their actions behind bars. He showed no remorse for his crimes and seldom discussed his motivations or inner thoughts with the media or psychologists. His fascination with women's shoes and his obsession with his victims' clothing remained a chilling reminder of the darkness that drove him. Jerry Brudos died in prison on March 28, 2006 at the age of 67. His death marked the end of a gruesome chapter in the history of American serial killers. While behind bars, he never revealed the full extent of his crimes, leaving many unanswered questions about the true number of his victims and the depths of his depravity. Jerry Brudos, the shoe fetish slayer, was indeed a disturbing and unique figure in the world of serial killers. Are some interesting and chilling facts about him. Brudos' fascination with women's shoes began when he was just 5 years old. He found a pair of high-heeled shoes in a junkyard, and this discovery ignited his lifelong obsession with women's footwear. Brudos transformed his garage into a sinister torture chamber where he subjected his victims to unimaginable horrors. He meticulously set up this room to indulge his sadistic fantasies, complete with various pieces of women's clothing and an array of shoes. Brudos compulsively photographed his victims during their ordeal. These photographs served as a twisted form of mementos for him, documenting the degrading and humiliating acts he forced his victims to endure. After Linda Slauson's miraculous escape and subsequent arrest, Brudos quickly confessed to his crimes. He calmly provided details about his abductions, tortures, and murders, offering chilling insights into his warped mind. Brudos spent over 35 years in prison. Unlike some other serial killers, he did not seek notoriety or engage in attention-seeking behavior while incarcerated. He maintained a relatively low profile throughout his time behind bars. Brudos kept items from his victims as gruesome trophies. He would retain their shoes and other personal belongings as macabre souvenirs of his crimes, a haunting reminder of the lives he had taken. While Brudos was convicted of the murders of 3 young women, Linda Slauson, Jan Whitney, and Karen Sprinker, some believe he may have been responsible for more unsolved disappearances and deaths in the area. The full extent of his crimes may never be known. Jerry Brudos died of liver cancer on March 28, 2006, while serving his life sentence at the Oregon State Penitentiary. His death marked the end of a dark chapter in criminal history. Jerry Brudos' case remains a disturbing example of the depths to which some individuals can sink and the perverse motivations that drive them to commit unspeakable acts of violence. His obsession with women's shoes and his willingness to inflict horrifying suffering on his victims make him a particularly chilling figure in the annals of serial killers. As we conclude our journey into the disturbing world of Jerry Brudos, may the memory of his victims serve as a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unspeakable horror.